welcome to the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast with your host, Amanda Bird. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast with me, Amanda Bird. Still funny all these years later. Okay, so I am inside today, and I think I'm having some issues with the sound. Maybe, potentially, not really sure. Anyway, this week's episode is going to be called Full Potential Fiction and People Can't Read Minds. We'll get into all of what that entails in a few minutes. I do want to say today's episode may go longer. Today's episode may go shorter than it has in the past, than it usually does, because today was rough. Today was really, really rough for me. Anxiety is a real bitch. And this is something I'm actually going to talk about in next week's episode, because, well, it might get slightly unhinged. I mean, it probably won't. It's going to sound more probably like a woe is me kind of thing. And it's really not meant to be that. It's meant to be more educational on the life bits, the whole trying to take things back and doing things that you used to do when you're trying to heal from toxic relationships. But that's next week. This week's episode, Full Potential Fiction. I'll get into that once I'm done introducing everything. And then People Can't Read Minds, because guess what? People aren't fucking mind readers. I don't care what Betty on the corner holding her plastic crystal ball says to you. The bitch can't read your mind, I promise. People can't read your minds. You have to tell them things. Now, as you get to know somebody, yes, they might be able to quote unquote read your mind, but reality says no, they cannot read your mind. So without further ado, let's head on to Full Potential Fiction. Hey, do we even like that title? Because if not, I might have a fight with ChatGPT. Whatever. Okay, so books as political statements is kind of where I was going with this. But that's also, I guess that goes hand in hand with full potential fiction, right? Because if the fiction's not living up to its full potential, that's a fucking problem, right? So political statements, specifically in fiction. This particular, I know I've gone on about this before, but this particular, I guess, rant, if you will, was brought up by, we have a books Slack channel at work. And somebody recommended Love and Chemistry, or whatever the hell that book's called. And I was intrigued. So I looked up the book description, and then I realized, big fucking mistake. Do you know that fatality meme? I don't care if it's the GIF from Mortal Kombat, or if it's just the one that's like that red skull with the big old X on it or whatever, and it says fatality in big white letters under it. Yeah. That's basically how I felt, because I was like, this book is fucking fatal to me, because no. So while I do read authors like Larry Correia, Larry does put a lot of real world things into his books, right? He makes fun of all sides of the political spectrum, every single bit, from extreme to extreme, and anywhere in between. That dude makes fun of fucking everything. And I think it's hilarious. And he's also got a vast knowledge of weapons and ammunition and just Jesus Christ. I'm in awe every time I read one of his books, which reminds me, no, I have not picked up Memoirs Fever yet, and I need to. Got to be in hardcover too, because I'm a snob that way. Yeah, Larry Correia and Jason Cordova just released that a week or two ago, I think. And well, I am clearly a sad sack since I don't have it yet. But Larry doesn't use his fiction to make a political statement. He uses his fiction to entertain people. And then we have these things like this Love and Chemistry, whatever the fuck that is, and everything else that's... Yeah. I'm probably going to lose myself a few listeners here, but Y'all on the left side of the spectrum, I don't give a fuck where you are on the left side of the spectrum, because you're more guilty of this than anyone I've ever read on the right side of the spectrum. Even those of us that are much more closer to center, like, we don't make political statements with our books. The only people I've noticed who do are largely fantasy authors, and they are on the left side of the spectrum. I don't care what side of the spectrum you stand on. I don't give a fuck about your personal politics, and I really don't give a fuck about your actual politics when it comes to voting in the country of the United States of America. I do not care. What you do is on you. When it affects me, we have a problem. When it affects me in your fiction, because it's not speculative fiction, it's fucking fantasy, and you're writing about elves or vampires or werewolves, I don't care. Keep it out. I don't want everyday bullshit wrapped up in my entertainment. And that goes double. You know what? That goes triple for all forms of entertainment, not just books, movies, TV shows, unless it's something like 24 or another Kiefer Sutherland one. What the fuck was that? Designated Survivor. Things like that. Like, those are political thrillers, right? If you're not writing a political thriller or a documentary, get rid of it. Fucking kick it out of your books. I do not care. And I guarantee you so many other authors and so many readers are really, really, really irritated by this, especially because it's become much more prevalent, especially in fantasy. I just got done reading a few horror stories by friends and authors who I know may be political opposites from me. They might even be, we might have some of the same shared beliefs, but largely we don't vote the same. Let's put it that way. But I will tell you this. They don't put politics in their stories. And if they do, they're making fun of it. One way or another, they're making fun of it. Hell, I make fun of both sides of the spectrum, including where I'm at on the spectrum. I don't care. You're all fucking cannon fodder for me. I don't care. Yes, one of my books brings up a very specific Ron DeSantis something or other, but it's literally dating my book. Like, that's what that is. My editor, I went back and forth for like a week over the like half paragraph, because I was like, okay, it's going to date the book. That's fine. But also, like, does it show political leanings in any direction? And he said, no. He's like, you're stating a fact. So you don't have to worry about doing something you really are against in your book, because that you're stating a fact. You're stating what was going on at that time, what was happening. I can't remember if it was the origination of the feud with Disney or whatever, but I mean, it is what it is. I refuse to insert my personal beliefs and politics into my books unless we're talking about everybody should fucking die. That's right. I said it. All of my characters will eventually one day fucking die. Does that mean I'm going to kill off Brittany Cage at the end of the 13 Reasons for Murder series? It sure as shit does not, because I'm not going to do that to her. The other thing I'm not going to do is make her a fucking lumberjack. Showtime, looking at you. Not even looking at Jeff Lindsay, because if I'm not mistaken, that man had nothing to do with the series finale. Pretty sure he walked away from it a long time before that. And I'm fairly certain he had zero to do with New Blood. See, what happens is when we sell our IP, intellectual property, or we sell the rights to our IP, because let's face it, we don't actually sell our IP, because you're going to have to give us a lot of fucking money for that. That is our lifeblood. Off you shall fuck all the way. So he sold the licensing to Dexter, to Showtime, and now Showtime can do whatever the fuck they want with it. So what did they do? They made him a damn lumberjack, and then they fucking took him to Canada, the borderline of Canada and the US, and he was still a fucking lumberjack, which what's left of my soul hurts. So I feel like that's just going to be another conversation for another day. But like, if you read the Dexter books, if you watch the Dexter show, no political injections, political facts, maybe bullshit that was going on in the political world then, probably. No injection of personal politics and or beliefs. Why? Because it is entertainment. Fiction is entertainment. Some of you comic book people, you're just as fucking guilty. And like, while I love some, like I am friends with comic book people. I love some of y'all. I support the shit out of some of y'all, but some of your projects I am not going to financially support because it's too political. It's too preachy in one way, shape, or form. And just no, not cool. Too preachy in one way, shape, or form is the first fucking 10 minutes of this episode, because I am preaching about I want to be entertained. I don't want to be Charlie Brown in his fucking classroom, because when that shit starts happening, and this is exactly why I DNF'd the book. What episode was that with the DNFs? It was 2 episodes ago, 3 episodes ago. Hang on. Trusty ass notebook here. DNF this episode 18. DNF'd it because of the mass injection of personal beliefs. Only with this one specifically, it was character, sexual preference, and sexuality. And it was really bad throughout the first like 40 pages of the book. And I couldn't fucking do it anymore. I couldn't. I love the author. I think they're a great person. I think they're super helpful. They're very knowledgeable. They are very open to, kind of sharing that knowledge depending on the platform they're sharing knowledge for. But the point is, like, just because I love you doesn't mean I'm going to be able to support certain things. I'm going to give it a shot for sure. But I can't. I absolutely cannot. I kind of refuse. The whole point of fiction is some level of suspended belief system, right? Like entertainment. I don't know how many more times I can say this fucking word, but let alone the phrase entertainment. I don't care. I want to be entertained to escape the bullshit and the nonsense that I see on the news every fucking day when I get up and start working at 6 o'clock in the goddamn morning, because all I want is the fucking weather for the day to know, can I open my patio door or is it going to be too damn humid outside? So, because let's face it, it's the end of the year in Florida, which means the humidity can go one way or the other. And I've gotten very accustomed to, gee, how fucking gross is it going to be today? Because this past summer was absolutely terrible. Kind of sort of made me glad I'm not a homeowner yet. But I just, fiction is meant to be entertaining. Even like the post-apoc or something like the Hunger Games, while it's making a political statement, it's making a political statement in the effect of that specific fictional universe, right? Suzanne Collins fucking killed it with that. It wasn't, let's beat on the right, let's beat on the left, let's beat on the straight people, let's beat on the gay people. It was none of that. It was entirely wrapped up in its own universe, that the political system was its own universe in its own universe. So something like that. All right, cool. I'm good with that because it's still entertaining. It still gets me out of the bullshit that I encounter on the daily. Like, I was talking to my voracious reader, work bestie, and sorry, you just heard my phone. I guess I forgot to mute it. Let me see if I can find, because I starred this message in conversation with her, and I did get explicit permission to use what she responded with, because I asked her, I was like, how do you feel about politics in books, like real world politics in your fiction? And she said, I don't mind it as long as it's relevant to the main plot or somehow enhances the story. But man, I am not a fan of self-indulgent tangents of any kind, politics or not. Cannot stand when it takes away from the book just because the author feels the need to say it or add something in. Keywords here: somehow enhances the story. If you're not enhancing your story, cut it the fuck out. If your editor hasn't told you that it does nothing to enhance the story, cut it out, then maybe you should fire your editor. I have a great one. I am willing to share him. I mean, I will whoop your ass if he's late getting my shit back for yours. But promise, he will right down the center. Cut it. It doesn't enhance the story, or leave it in. It does enhance the story. Like he's fucking awesome. I love him to death. Also good people, but seriously, like, and she's just one person I asked that question to. I don't want to know how many other people are going to agree with that. Like, it doesn't have to just be politics. It can be anything. If it doesn't enhance the story, I'll hand you the damn scissors. Or would you prefer an X-Acto knife? Like, I really don't care. I don't. Just get it the fuck out of your books. Get it out of your quote unquote entertainment, because it's not entertaining if it doesn't enhance the story, if it doesn't entertain people. And I promise you, your politics do not entertain anyone. Promise. We're all so sick of politics given the past. It's 2023 right now. The past 14 years, we're sick of it. We're fucking sick of it. We all deserve a bottle of like 100 proof absolute every time there's an election. Because of the shit that's in our mailboxes, the shit that goes on all over the TV, the shit that goes on all over social media. We stop talking to people because their political beliefs are different than ours. One side will prefer to name call and chastise and call us fucking Nazis. Stop the fucking bus. Am I burning people? No, I'm not. Am I killing people because their differences, their views are different than mine? No. Am I calling people names because their views are different than mine? No, because I know how to be fucking respectful and understand the fact that your views are different than mine. I can respect that because you know what? Your views being different than mine, those are going to enhance our friendship. I can use those things to enhance our friendship. I can use those things to learn more about you so that I can understand where you're coming from. Or so that you can understand where I'm coming from. But the problem is one side they're not tolerant. The other side is a lot more tolerant than the other. And then there's those of us in the middle who are even more fucking tolerant. But anyway, the point is, if it does not enhance the story in some way, shape, or form, get it the fuck out. None of your political statements belong in any form of entertainment unless it is specifically geared to a very specific audience. Like, perfect example here. Babylon Bee, aimed at conservatives, makes fun of everybody, but it's aimed at conservatives. The point is, it is political satire and it is entertaining in that space because that's the space that it's in. It's not, it's not like Dexter saying he's going to go vote. Because he's not. It's not Hannibal saying he's going to go vote or he's killing people because they're one side of the political spectrum and not the other. That would make him a fucking Nazi, people. Just saying. All right. Sorry. I just got really loud and a lot unhinged. So I'm actually going to cut that right there because it's a subject there's one person who's listening right now who may actually comment something along the lines calling me Angry Bird because this person does this specifically when I talk about Star Wars, because I get pretty upset pretty quickly, especially when we're talking the last 3 movies with Kylo Ren and Rey the Liar. So yeah. Anyway, if you enjoy my rants and or everything else I go on about, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, like it, share it, whatever you got to do. Subscribe button is the most important to me. Thank you. So, on to the life section of today's episode. People can't read minds. I used to think I was a mind reader. I mean, hell, with my first husband, I kind of was. But that was because I knew him well enough to be a mind reader. Like, I could see the look on his face during a conversation and be like, are you thinking A, B, and C? And he'd be like, yeah, totally am. The last one... No, you can't read a narcissist's mind. You can't do shit with a narcissist. So we're just going to let that go. The current boyfriend, I don't know him well enough to be able to try that. So, I mean, I'm not gonna. Like, this is a very interesting, educational, and awesome relationship. And I'm just going to kind of leave that where I'm leaving it. Full stop. End statement. So people can't read minds. In this specific bit of people can't read minds, it's having tough conversations. And those tough conversations, even more specifically, are expectations. I don't care who you are. I really don't. Male, female, like I do not fucking care who you are. Promise. If you sit there and say you have no expectations, what you have labeled yourself is a fucking liar. You're a liar. Everyone has expectations, whether they are spoken or unspoken. The point is this is going to be a twofer here. The number one most important thing is to acknowledge that your expectations are different from someone else's. In that, I mean, because I've been struggling with this all fucking day, all day. I've had a really hard time with this. You can't expect someone who is not you to behave the way that you do, to say the things that you say. Like, I text my man every morning, good morning, babe, or at night, good night. Sometimes it's just a kiss. Sometimes it's more words. He responds usually in the morning with, hello. Okay, cool. I'm the one doing the texting every morning, and that's okay because that's me. That's not him. Do you see what I'm saying? So leveling out my expectations for him because he is not me is a battle for me right now because of the things that I am used to in my past. We actually had a smaller, more bigger picture conversation of expectations last week, and it was really hard. Like, y'all, I am so bad, in case you haven't noticed by now, I am so bad with words verbally, like especially on the spot. Like if I don't have the opportunity to type them out and edit them and rework them and make them sound just right, they sound fucking terrible. Absolutely terrible. So I broached this conversation with something along the lines of, there's no real easy way for me to say this, so I'm just going to say it. And then I sat there silent until I could get the words out of my mouth. Just like I just did for, 3 seconds? 4 seconds, 5, 6 seconds almost. I'm watching the waveforms. Almost 6 fucking seconds. I just sat here silent. I think it was probably a little longer than that during our conversation last week. And I don't know about you, but if somebody did that to me, I would already be preparing for the fucking worst. My brain would be like, fuck, they're going to break up with me. That's it. This is the end of it. I don't even understand what the hell happened. Like, because that would be what most people would think when someone's like, okay, so there's no easy way to put this. So I'm just going to say it. Right. So babe, apologies for that. Yeah, that was a fun and interesting way to broach that topic. I can try not to do it again. I can't promise it won't happen though. I do it to my friends all the time too. They're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. I have gotten so bad verbally with words anymore. I just don't know. What's even funnier is the narcissist would say to me all the time, and I mean at least 3 times a week, minimum, you're a writer. How can you not say things right? Motherfucker, what did you just say to me? Finally, I stopped listening to him. But he would always throw at me like, well, you're an author. You're good with words. No, dude, I'm good with words on fucking paper because I can edit them. I can change them. Once something comes out of my mouth, because I don't really have that filter, it's out. It's done. The words are said, whether I'm trying to be a dick to you or not. And let's face it, I was trying to be a dick to him quite frequently because I wanted to throw back at him what he threw at me. And then it all got shifted, turned completely the fuck around on me, blame shifted, the whole 9 yards. So I try to catch myself now and think about what I'm about to say. And I pause a lot longer than I probably should because it makes the weird awkward silence. And I fucking hate awkward silence. I always feel like it needs to be filled. And then I fill it by opening my mouth and inserting my foot. So yeah. God. But seriously, like words about feelings and such they seem to be the absolute worst for me. I can't. I just can't get them out properly. And a lot of times they're not something where I can just like sit there and, I mean, seriously, I'm not going to sit here and write a fucking novel length of my thoughts and feelings and then read it verbatim to my boyfriend. It's just not going to happen. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. He's probably listening and laughing to that right now. But my point is, like, if you're bad with words and you know you're bad with words, don't say shit like I do. Just don't. Use this as a learning experience. Do not freak out your significant other, your family, your friends. Just be like, look, you know, I'm bad with verbalizing these things. If it comes out wrong, I'm sorry in advance. In my case, I apologize like 100 fucking times throughout the conversation because lots of times it comes out really, 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 really bad. But then once I start talking about it, they're like, no, I completely understand what you're talking about. Like, I get it. Like, you're fine with what you're saying. It's how you prefaced it that you may have fucked up a little bit. Nope, fucked up a lot. Let's acknowledge that. I will take that responsibility. Because again, that's kind of part of being an adult, right? You take the responsibility. You accept accountability for your words and actions, which again goes back to, or I'm sorry, it doesn't go back to anything yet, because you also have to accept accountability for your inaction and lack of words as well, which now goes back to the conversation of expectations, right? You have to verbalize those things for someone to understand that you even have expectations. And if you know you have expectations, but you want to know what someone else's are, fucking ask. Ask. I did. Hell, I even said the words, you can sit here and say that you don't have any, but you're a fucking liar if you do. Maybe I didn't say it quite like that, but anyway, yeah, the expectations are a thing. We all have them. We all have them. It might be something where you have to sit and think about it for a little bit. But there's going to come a point in your personal lives, in your professional lives, where the expectations conversations are going to have to happen. They are absolutely a challenge to have, at least for me, because, you know, I'm still healing. I'm still learning how to talk to normal people instead of knowing I can't voice my thoughts and feelings without being blamed for them, even if they're nothing negative toward the significant other. So I'm still struggling with that. So that was what I meant earlier when I said, you know, this is an awesome learning experience for me. And it's just an awesome relationship. I can't complain. He makes me happy. But as I catch myself being stupidly happy again, I'm blushing. But I can't sit here and say I don't understand why people can't have these conversations, because I completely, at least coming from what I've come from, I can completely understand, right? Like, we're afraid we're going to get judged. We're afraid we're going to be rejected. We're afraid we're going to have Amanda disease, where we stick our foot in our mouth repeatedly in 3 seconds. It's just 3 seconds is an exaggeration. It's scary. It's a scary thing to think about, to have to know that you need to have these conversations, let alone have these conversations. They need to be had. There are plenty of relationship gurus, whatever, out there that will talk about, you know, voicing expectations, because you can't have your expectations met if someone doesn't know they exist. And it's funny because my ex and I were discussing this a couple weeks, probably about a week ago. And he's like, I don't think we had any unspoken expectations. And I was like, okay, well, we totally fucking did. I'm learning that now. I apologize for that. And I'm going to take that fuck up from our relationship and learn from it and build on it in this one. So, like, there were a lot of unspoken expectations on my side, and I really truly feel like there were a lot on his side too. I don't know if he's actually given thought to it or not. I don't know if he actually cares, because like, we're not together anymore, right? We're friends now. We're pretty close. But I don't want to repeat that, because that shit will sink relationships so fast. And I don't want that to happen. Not with this one. So yeah, expectations are a thing. Okay. And what I mean by expectations is this, right? Okay. So we'll just use the texting thing as an example here. I know that when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I'm thinking about is usually them. If it's not them, it's work. I've gotten a lot better about my job being the first thing I think about in the morning, because honestly, I don't want to fucking think about it until 8 a.m. when I start working. I don't. It is so stressful right now. I do not want anything to do with my job if I am not on the clock. So there's that. I don't necessarily make an effort to think about him first thing in the morning, but he's the first thing I think about. So the good morning text when I get out of bed, that is me saying to him, you're the first thing I think about. Do I expect me to be the first thing he thinks about? No, because I'm a fucking realist. It would be nice to know if I was the first thing he thought about in the morning. But my point is, my expectations need to be on a real level, right? And that real level is that he's not me. He is someone else totally different from me. And it's okay if he doesn't wake up and immediately text me like I do. And where the anxiety part comes into that, and those of you who have anxiety will completely understand this. Oh, and disclaimer / warning, if you're in recovery from a toxic and or abusive relationship, and you're dating someone and you're trying to keep yourself level on those expectations, if you're prone to panic attacks, buckle the fuck up, because it's going to happen. Yeah. Put your seatbelt on, potentially even a helmet, because this is what anxiety does, right? It likes to think that it's protecting you. It's your brain thinking it's protecting you, but that's not necessarily always going to be the case, right? Your brain's going to fabricate some level of fictional bullshit. Worst case scenario, feel like it's completely apocalyptic, world ending, but it's your world, not like the whole world. But it sucks. Absolutely sucks. Like, I actually had multiple panic attacks on Saturday, but it was nothing. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, it was 100% expectations. Okay, so I go to an event to help a friend, and as I'm pulling into the parking garage, I am on the phone with a really good friend of mine, and I said to her, I don't want to fucking be here. And she said, what do you mean? I said, it just hit me that the last time I was here was with the narcissist, and that weekend was an epic fucking disaster. And yet I still went on to marry him 2 weeks later. So, that was a really, really rough day for me. I don't remember. It might've been somewhere between like 1 and 3 in the afternoon. But I was determined to take that specific event back, because you know what? It was mine before I ever knew he fucking existed. And I don't care if he shows up at that event ever again, because the fact of the matter is this, and the one thing that I held on to all day, and well, it's a little, I'm not going to cut this out. The one thing that I held on to all day that I kept reminding myself of was the person who was there for me that weekend, those years ago, was not the guy I married 2 weeks later. It's the guy I'm dating now. He was there for me the whole fucking weekend, hung out with me, because the narcissist was barely with me at all. And the whole reason he was there was to fucking help me and support me. But that didn't happen. Instead, it turned into this. I don't even want to talk about it. It was just bad, real bad. But yeah, the person who supported me the most that weekend and hung out with me and sat with me and, you know, was just there for me was the guy I'm with now. I held on to that. Because he was unable to make it this past weekend. But that was where my focus was. That was the thing that calmed me and kept me kind of on this planet. And I was also just really, really determined to take this back because I introduced that motherfucker to this world. And if he chooses to come back into it, that's all well and good. But he has burned his own fucking bridges all by himself, because I can't tell you how many people came up to me and they're like, oh, are you still with that piece of shit? No, I'm not. That divorce finalized a couple months ago. Lesson learned, still in the healing process, which is also amazing of my dude to be like, at least it's amazing to me and I appreciate the fuck out of it. He understands that there's gonna be days where I am really off. Today was one of them, and we had a little bit of that conversation, and I apologized for being intentionally vague. It's not a conversation I want to have over text message. I'd rather have it when I see you, when we see each other, like then we can talk about it. And he was totally cool with that. Pretty sure he's aware that it's not like a bad thing. It's just, I will explain it more in depth later. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, right? Expectations need to be verbalized. It's like any other conversation in a relationship where some things just need to be talked about on a somewhat regular, we'll call it recurring basis. I don't want to say regular because there's going to be somebody out there who's going to fucking email me and be like, Amanda, I'm not scheduling an expectations conversation once a month. I'm not asking you to do that, dumbass. I'm not. I'm telling you, you need to verbalize your expectations for someone that you are in a relationship with, whether that is a parental, familial relationship, a friendship, or a romantic relationship. Doesn't fucking matter. Expectations need to be discussed. I don't care. And that's because some of us are just most of us are not fucking mind readers. I can't look at Bob across the street and be like, oh, Bob expects me to walk across the street and introduce myself to him. I don't fucking know that. I'm never going to know that unless we talk about it, you know? If Bob doesn't tell me, I don't fucking know. So, no, we're not mind readers. Before I close this episode out, I need to address something that I found out about last week. Probably should have found out about it during the beginning of the month when it was first reported. Unfortunately, I just found out about it last week. If you've been listening to almost every episode, or you have met me in person and we've had the whole bringing the book series to life on the TV screen conversation, you may or may not be aware of the allegations against the one and only person I want associated with my project. That said, I do not have an opinion on the allegations. I will say that I emphatically hope they are baseless accusations. If they're not, remains to be seen, but I am really, really hoping this person is just a sad, lonely, tortured soul who's trying to take someone else down with him. Hopefully that's not going to be Brian Fuller, because that's fucking bullshit. They're currently unsubstantiated claims, and that's that. Of course, Brian Fuller emphatically denies them, so there is that as well. And I really, truly hope that they are entirely untrue and made up. So now that that's out there, I really wanted to put that out there because I do talk about him a lot. I really like his work. And he is him. So I wanted to kind of put that out there in case people started wondering, like, oh, well, hey, we can't associate with you now because of whatever, which is fine. I get that. Right now, I'm not saying one way or the other because I don't know. I don't. Nothing else has been released. I went looking for more articles earlier today. I couldn't find anything. So I just hope they're untrue. I hope they are baseless allegations because someone's just disgruntled. So that said, I am going to end this week's episode. And again, subscribe, like, share. If you have suggestions for topics, whether they are book topics or life topics, or even shenanigans topics, do me a favor, email me amanda.bird.books@gmail.com or amanda@amandabird.net. And I will do what I can to include them in the next episode, or an episode shortly after you email me, especially if it's something I'm going to have to do some research on. So yes, thank you so much for joining me this week. And maybe I'll rant next week. Maybe I won't. This has been the Books, Life, and Shenanigans podcast with Amanda Bird. Song credit, audionautics.com. Intro action, AUDIONAUTIX.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, head over to substack.com/@Books, Life, and Shenanigans.